Right, welcome everyone back to the Rawbellious podcast. Today we have our first guest on, so please welcome our lovely friend Rowena. Rowena's from Campbell's Canine Kids on Instagram, so some of you may already know her. Welcome, Rowena.
Hello, hello.
How are you? You
good,
right?
thank you. How are you?
Good. Very nice to have you on. Rowena's a very good friend of ours as well, so we thought it'd be nice to have a friend on for our first guest spot. So we're just going to chat with Rowena about just her raw journey, really. And she's got some really interesting stories about her dogs and their journey. So I think it's really good to kind of get a different perspective from people and how they've sort of got their dogs on a nice, good path from having lots of health conditions. And you've done amazing. So
thank you.
Been inspirational. So, Anna, I'll throw over to you.
Hello, Rowena.
Hi.
So if you want to just tell us about your raw journey and what made you switch.
So in 2018, I badgered my husband to buy a dog. And then we bought a puppy and he came with Ava. Great breeder. He had so many litters and stuff, he just couldn't afford to do raw from the start. And I used to add so much food to his bowl, like steak, fruit, veggies, yogurts, peanut butter, stuff that I would never add now. That I was spending more money topping his food than the actual food cost.
Yeah.
So
what made you sort of think to start adding toppers? Was it just that you were seeing people do it, or?
Basically, I just didn't want him to eat the same thing every day, and I don't like to eat the same thing every day. I don't even like to eat the same thing twice in a week, really.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he would, and why he'd want to. So I started doing that, and then soon an advert came up on Google, as they do, raw feeding. So we literally I was like, right, not buying any more kibble. Let's just switch. And did it the cowboy way. And just kind of figured it out, like, foot on my feet from there, and just, carried on, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think so many people get started that way, don't they? Start chucking things in a bowl. And then when you do find out the sort of things you should be doing, you're slightly horrified when you look back. But you got to start somewhere, especially when you're kibble feeding. I think anything you're adding is good, isn't it?
I don't think it's as scary when you do it that way either. If you do it yourself rather than following somebody else's advice, it's a lot more.
Yeah. Did you when you started the raw feeding, after a while, how long was it before you started really looking into whether you were doing it properly?
Oh, at least 8 months, probably. I would say. And that's when I discovered Steph's Pet Pantry. So it was quite a while. I was having weekly deliveries from DAF, and I was just using the one brand, and whatever they had, I was giving to my Harry, and then Jacob at the time, because we had Jacob from not long after. So
yeah, I think a lot of people do it like that, don't they? And I think a lot of people also just use one protein as well.
Yes,
that's really
exactly.
You see, I think, so many people just think, well, and you would, because when you feed kibble for years, you just feed chicken kibble or turkey kibble. You don't constantly rotate the flavors, because I think in that side of the canine, I'll loosely say nutrition, they tell you not to mix kibbles, and they tell you not to switch the food because they'll be ill. And I know that I was really worried adding a different flavor kibble into my dog's diet, because I thought, well, he's going to get the shits. And now we know that's just not the case at all.
Yeah.
It's probably all the other crap that's in it that's actually causing the issues. So how many dogs have you got now?
5.
5.
Just 5.
Just 5. And they're not small dogs either, are they?
No, none of them are less than 28 kilo.
Excellent.
wow,
So
my gosh.
how many kilos do you get through a day?
4. Well,
my
nearly
goodness.
5. 4.5, 5, depending on Klaus on a good day.
Oh, that dog is a machine. Honestly, I've never known a dog to be in such amazing condition, but he just like powers through food.
He does, but he's very good at self-regulating, as we've only just discovered.
Yeah.
So,
and he was being a bit fussy at one point, wasn't he, as well?
he can still be quite fussy. He certainly follows like hormones, what's going on in a house, that kind of. He's very sensitive to all those things.
Yeah.
He's just finished actually a period where he had 4 days of eating not even 1,000 grams of food, and then the last 2 days he's eating 2,500 worth of food. So he really kind of makes up for it when he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good that you've been able to identify that and not overly worry on it. Because I've
tried
seen
not to.
Yeah, but I think that's
so
good, isn't
chilled. It is.
I think we're so used to dogs eating. This is how much they should have every single meal, every single day.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had an extreme case of a not eater. But I think if your dog goes a day with not really eating much, and then the next day they want to eat, it's not that big a deal, really. I think we get so obsessed, don't we?
But this is where a food diary comes in as well. You know, if you keep that diary, you can say, right, well, even though he's only eaten this over the 7 days or even the 28 days, he's still hit his target. And that's all you really need to know, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The one pup in particular, well, not pup, and not such a little dog, is Logan and his story. Do you want to just tell us a bit about that? Because it's just the way that it all links back to the gut is just absolutely fascinating.
So obviously I had him from the same breeder as Harry, not Jacob. And he came at 8 weeks old during lockdown. And he was switched straight to raw first meal, as the others were. And after about, I want to say 6 to 8 months, he started to be a bit like, I don't know, sensitive to water. His eyes would go a little bit, you know, not gunky, but just a little bit flary. And then they'd go again. And then as the months came by, other things started happening. He was a bit scratchy. He was itching his ears. And then over probably 18 months, it just got to the point where he wasn't happy. His ears were full of stuff. I tried everything that anybody could mention doing. And nothing was steroids, antibiotics, creams, lotions, herbals, holistics. Everybody didn't know how to get rid of Pseudomonas. You won't get rid of it. He was sleeping in the bath because his skin was so hot. He wanted to sleep in a cold environment. He was anxious. He didn't want to go anywhere. You can't separate him from the other boys because he just can't cope.
That was a big thing, wasn't it? His anxiety was huge with it all, wasn't it?
Yeah. And even still, he's being managed with antidepressants or Prozac, whatever you'd like to call it, because it just keeps him happy. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so you have had so many tests with him, haven't you? You were seeing the vet all the time. What sort of led you down the road? Because obviously it's not that obvious to a lot of people that something like that would stem from the gut. So what was it that kind of made you or whoever you were working with start thinking it was a gut issue?
So originally the vet said it just needs steroids, you get rid of it. And then after we tried about 4 or 5 courses of the big deep in-ear one, the mouth steroids, everything like that, they took us, they said, we can't do any more, you need to go and see a specialist. So we went to an ophthalmologist, a dermatologist, and then we were about to go and see what they call the gut doctor specialist. And the dermatologist says, he's just a Labrador. 1 in 4 have these issues. You'll never get rid of it. Yeah. Here's the things you could do. High plantogenic diet. I said, no. Lifelong steroids. I said, don't really want to do that. She said, you can try and do an elimination diet again, which I'd already done previously to go into her. And she said, do it again. I said, okay. I said, what about antibacterial tablets? Because my husband had said, why are we giving steroids for a bacterial infection? Surely bacteria needs to. So anyway, she said she agreed, and he had them. And then I said, so really, we're just looking at trying to get him to the best possible place. And she said, yeah. So then I just went away, and I was like, well, it's got to be stemming from somewhere. I spoke to Helena, spoke to Steph at Steph's Pet Pantry, spoke to you guys and everybody else, and it's like it's got to be the gut. It's got to be. Yeah. So then I just piled as much into his gut as he could take. Adored Beast, kefir water, all the good stuff, limited protein diet, stuff that I knew made him itchy. He didn't have any more.
And he went on to cooked, didn't he, for a while as well?
Yeah, so he had
gentler.
some cooked. Yeah, he certainly had his probiotics mixed with cooked food and then fed separately to his raw.
Yeah.
And then obviously we kept him inside, so he didn't go for any walks because obviously grass was a huge factor. He's allergic to berries apparently as well. And all mites, house mites, all the rest of it.
Because what was that? Because you didn't have the sort of bog standard test, did you, that vets offer? What was it that you ended up going down the route with him?
So they said you can have this, this, and this, which is about £500, or you can have this one, which covers everything, and whatever we find, we'll just go down that route to find what is at the end of it.
Yeah,
and it was nearly £2,000. But what it allowed the microbiologist, or whatever their real term name is, to do was to just go off and just keep going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So then she came back, and he wasn't allergic to much, but what he was allergic to was all around him, and it was going to be there for the rest of his life. The tree that he was allergic to is just outside, and they blow within 200 miles of the house and all the rest of it. And the only answer to that would be they would make this monthly injection, and he would have that, and his body would start to fight against it, and then he wouldn't be allergic to it in theory.
Yeah. And that wasn't like a cytopoint or anything, was it? It was like a different sort of injection.
Yes, they make it for the dog and the dog only.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. It is. So where are you with him today?
He's 4 months clear of everything.
It's crazy.
We still don't give any fruit and veg because he just can't tolerate it still. We don't give certain proteins. Like, for example, he can tolerate cooked duck, and you can give him a whole duck meal and he'll be itchy within, 2 hours, 3 hours. And that itch if you don't catch it, it will just spiral.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is really important to say some dogs just can't have proteins. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to limit their life. He's still having 15 other proteins if he can't eat four. If he can't eat four, if he can't eat four of the major ones.
I think that's what people don't. Not everybody, obviously, but some people don't sort of expand on their proteins. They're just like, you can't have chicken, you can't have beef. What else is there? They don't realize there's all these other proteins that you can actually choose from.
Yeah, and it's quite refreshing to hear that you've pushed out there as well. You don't just stop at the few.
Yeah, exactly. But as he gets further away from where he was, I'm sure in time he will start being able to tolerate more of these things. Just 2 days ago, he had a piece of cucumber. not in his meal, just separate aside. The other, he was asking for it, so he had it, and he was fine. But
and his ears, are you like not having to use anything in his ears anymore?
Nothing, not a single thing.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
No,
it's just amazing. You've done, honestly, like we've seen it from a perspective of chatting to you daily, but it's unbelievable to the point where you got him to like, I remember messaging you going, I want to know your gut routine. What are you doing? I need to know this secret because it's just unbelievable. But like with Adored Beast, like obviously I've had amazing results with that as well. It's just been such an unbelievable What one were you using with him?
Love Bugs, Fido's Flora, and then I had the Gut Seal and the Healthy Gut, but I rotated those two. I rotated them all, but yeah,
and it's amazing. Really, really is. You never ever would have thought he'd got to that point.
No,
it was really sad seeing what we were seeing all the time, the pictures, the updates. But what was nice as well, the fact that you considered absolutely everything. You weren't just stuck on one route. It was whatever is best for my dog, and that's it. And that was just just the whole journey. It's very enlightening, and it was so nice to see it from start to this point now. Well, obviously it wasn't nice in the beginning, but just seeing you come out the other side, and it's just a really, really lovely, heartwarming journey as well. The fact you've identified so much alone as well.
I've learned so much.
And his anxiety's reduced, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. We're doing one day a week where he goes to a dog park in closed field, obviously, with his brothers, and he just has a run around and he has no stress. He doesn't bark in the car. Before, he couldn't even get in the car without going absolutely nuts. It was so scary for him. Taking him to the vets, I had to basically sedate him at home to get him in the car. And he's come so far. And it's lovely to watch him just thrive and go into grass and come out and be fine again. He's got no reaction, no itchiness, he's cool.
It's amazing. It just shows you the powerful link between the gut and the brain. It's unbelievable. I think it's the whole holistic thing, isn't it? It's looking at everything as a whole, looking at a bigger picture, because I think unfortunately a lot of vets wouldn't have done that at all.
No, but also I have to shout out to my vets, because without my vets, the holistic side had turned me down.
Yeah.
And they all turned me down. They all said they weren't qualified enough. Yeah. And my vets kept saying, although they weren't on the correct path, they were always there to help. They were always at hand when I was going, what do I need to, what can I do? Bless him, Bruce would, still phoned and said, how is he? What is there anything that we need to do? And I go, well, I'm a bit worried he's still on Prozac. He goes, no, he's fine. Let him carry on.
Yeah, and I think you've been an advocate for him, though. You've pushed and pushed and pushed, and not just said, okay, I'll take that answer and we won't go any further. And I think that's really important. The fact that you've just been like, no, I want to get to the bottom of this, and there must be something deeper going on.
Not just he's a Labrador.
Yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's a ridiculous answer.
It is.
Obviously, I mean, I know I'm guilty of saying that sometimes with Frenchies, but there is always a route. I mean, they are just Frenchies, and that is the problem. But there's always a cause of it for each one. Yeah. There's always a root cause. So I just think it's so important to just carry on. If you're not happy with an answer, just keep pushing.
Yeah, and even if that specialist isn't the correct one, like I'd gone to one that was, 50 miles that way, and they weren't very helpful. So I went to the one that was 50 miles in the opposite direction, because I thought, what, the insurance is there. Let's just go crazy. Yeah,
I mean, your insurance has taken a whack this last year. It's been unbelievable. But thank God. Do you know what though? I'm not. I would never judge anyone for not having insurance, but I think when you've had dogs that have needed all these things doing, it kind of makes you go, actually, do you know what? Insurance is so important. And I think you don't use it for ages and ages. And then you do when you need it, you realise. Because
for sure.
I mean, who could afford that?
Oh, I couldn't.
No. No, it's definitely been worth its weight, hasn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So while we're on sort of the subject of talking about supplements and things like that, what are your go-to? Because actually one of the other things you've been using for him is the More Mud as well, haven't you?
Yes, they all love the More Mud.
Yeah.
They have it so they go out in the morning, they go for their morning wee. The first thing they do is they come to the garage and they all have a spoonful of More Mud.
Yeah.
And then they go off and then I do their breakfast. But it's like a religion to them. They love it. They really do.
And I think you brought up a good point as well about probiotics and things like the More Mud to be given before the food on an empty stomach. Because I'm still guilty sometimes. If I don't have the time, I do just whack things in food. But I think things like that, if you want to optimize how they work, it's definitely on an empty stomach. Just so everything can get absorbed. But
or even taking them out the capsule and pouring them into that little bit of food to mix in and then feed it works. You can even tell, if with Logan, how different it is day to day. You can see it really when you have it mixed in.
I think that's important to say. If you're not sort of seeing the results you think you're going to see, it's definitely worth noting to try that. I think a lot of brands actually do sort of state that on their products anyway now, which is good.
Yeah, they do.
While we're on the supplement subject, then what are your sort of go-to favourite supplements that you keep in rotation? Obviously, you've got a lot of dogs, so they all have their different needs, but...
So obviously More Mud. I would class bone broth as a supplement because it without it,
we're
Jacob...
coming back to that. What's the recipe?
At the moment, it has to be probiotics, whether that be we're using a human one now, which has been tried and tested, or Adored Beast and kefir water. It's a game changer.
Definitely.
Just repopulating that gut, even if you've got healthy dogs, it can't be,
And where do you get your More Mud?
Directly from Annie Forte.
You do? Yeah. Annie Forte Queen.
Yes.
It's
and bone broth queen.
Yeah, and bone broth queen. Yeah, I mean, your bone broths are amazing. You've always got a bone broth on the go.
Now?
Literally.
So you add a lot of chia seeds into yours as well, don't you? Yeah.
So about, I don't know, nearly a year ago, people were, Nick Thompson was talking about nuts, herbs, seeds, all that lot. And I thought, well, that's a load of rubbish, really. And then about, I don't know, 6 months ago when Logan was having his gut stuff, I thought, you know what? It's a bit of fibre is probably going to help his gut. It's probably really just going to, So I added them in and now wouldn't be without them. They are little, they look like lies, but they are a miracle. they really do help that gut. Pushing anything out that shouldn't be in there, extra omegas, extra fibre. You can't go wrong.
No.
And it makes them feel a bit fuller, especially for Labradors, makes them feel a bit fuller, So really, you can't complain.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, we love bone broth.
We do. So I want to just skip to DIY. You've got a lot of dogs to prep for. We all know you're our DIY queen. We see it all laid out. How long does it take? How often do you do it? And name your favourite brands, because there's a whole heap there.
I think for DIY, I can do probably about 28 days worth of food in about 2 hours, I would think.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because I'm so organised, because I've got my little bucket, so I defrost my offals and then I just cut them up and I just get my music on, and
And you've
Get
got
into
that
it.
amazing sort of prep space, haven't you, in your garage?
Yeah,
as well?
I have. Yeah, so my garage, I've got big long surface, and then the freezer tops if I need extra space. But I'd have to say my favourite brand is the Dog's Butcher for most things. Yeah. And then alongside them, it has to be my game guy who does all my everything: venison, rabbits, venison offal, and then I get my goat offal from Chestnut Meats, and they're reasonably priced. You just go and pick it up, and then everything else. I mean, use the Cotswolds, and then not really many other brands, I don't think, because I'm quite fussy.
Yeah, and also obviously it's important to rotate your brands just because of the different offals used. But if you're getting hold of it yourself and you're rotating it yourself, Dog's Butcher, I have to say, I think does it so well. They have such an array of offals in their food anyway, even if you're just doing 80-10-10s. But the fact that you're going out there and sort of making sure they have as much as they do, it's amazing. I saw that on your Instagram, all the rabbit backs you got.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's only half of them as well.
Oh my God, that was so, it's just so much. How many freezers have you got?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a fridge.
Oh, wow.
5. And are they quite big freezers as well?
Yeah, so my biggest one you could probably fit 2 humans in, and then 2 more normal chest freezers, a smaller chest freezer, and then a tall one.
You could open a shop.
Literally, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's the
another
dream.
one, Stuart.
That is the dream. Oh yeah, I love DIY. Oh, who is that having a little chat?
That's Harry.
Who wants to join in?
Bless him. So bone broth.
Dogs are allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. But bone broth, are you actually going to share your recipe? Because you know we're all after it.
Honestly, that is honestly dead easy. You buy yourself a pressure cooker, an electric one, which is like you can get it for 69 quid on Amazon.
That's been a game changer, hasn't it? The pressure cooker.
Oh, absolutely. You can do a broth in 2.5 hours, and it's perfect. So I can do like 6 broths in a day.
Oh.
But I just use duck feet purely because I don't give Jacob any glucosamine and chondroit powders anymore. I just give him the broth. Yeah. And it's cheap, it does its job. Like you can go out there and buy loads of different bones and you can experiment all you like, but in my experience, duck feet is one of the best you can
I like
do.
feet. I like feet broth. I think it's the best. It's the best that I get out of anything. Yeah, I've tried so much with marrow over the years, and I just don't get the same good broth.
No.
But it's interesting what you were saying about using it instead of the joint supplements, because you just adding that in, you see such a difference.
Oh yeah.
What else are you using? Do you use anything else at all for joint supplements now?
No, nothing. They get occasional tracheas, obviously. Venison tracheas they eat a lot of. Yeah. Paddywhack, tendons, and just natural sauces nowadays. Yeah. I tried turmeric, as you all know, and because Jacob's a hot dog, he ended up with yeasty ears. 2 weeks later, after he stopped the turmeric, he was fine again. Yeah.
I think, that's important, isn't it? To realise that just because somebody says something is good for joints or the gut, or it depends on your individual dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, why don't you just try this again? And it's like, well, I wasn't really going to, but okay, just for peace of mind, and then it just ends up getting yourself in a right tickly situation. It's
Yeah.
like,
So true.
So have you, is it just those two that you'd say at the moment you feel like they've got their specific needs? The other three sort of just plod along, don't they?
yeah. So even kind of Jacob, Jacob, Hector, Hector and Harry only have broth with chia seeds and chamomile and nettle. Occasionally they'll have spirulina if they self-select it. And then they have omega capsules, obviously just for the joints as well. And then really it's just mostly food for them now. And then occasionally probiotics if I'm feeling like there's something going round, like there's been a doggy bug going around at the moment. So gave them a few days of that. But really, no, they're kind of like, they're adults and they know what they want and they know that what they don't want, basically.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. I think me and Anna have said before, like you sort of get into this horrible habit of sort of copying what you see quite a lot. And
absolutely.
not knowing why you're putting it on the food. I know when I started, I felt like I was doing that, kind of knew why I was using it, knew the benefits, but sort of thought I had to throw everything. And then before I know it, I've got food covered in powder that's probably unnecessary.
Yeah.
So the fact that you just strip it back and add in a few things, key things that you feel like they need is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so easy when you've got a company saying, oh, this summer, why don't you try this? And you think, well, I haven't tried that before. And then you go, it's done apps. In fact, it's made it worse. Why did I even bother? Like, because it's good marketing, but it's not going to help you in that situation.
No, and I think, personally, I think that the fact that you're doing the gut work is such a big part of that. It's huge.
Yeah.
It controls everything. And not to mention the fact that if you've got a healthy gut, it's going to absorb everything you're putting on the food anyway.
Absolutely.
There's no point throwing all these things on this food if the gut's not healthy and it's not going to absorb any of it.
No. And that's what was happening with Logan for such a long time. Even though I was trying the right things, I wasn't doing it in the correct way.
Yeah.
And then once you find the right key to the formula, you're on a winner. You just have to carry on.
Yeah. So have you got any advice for someone just starting out? Like literally at the beginning of the game, like you were quite a long time ago. What would you say to, hate to use the term newbie, but someone who's new into the raw world, whether it be DIY or, I don't know, just complete, how would you say to approach it?
Start on a protein that isn't chicken, beef or pork, something like turkey or anything really, rabbit, something that's not normally, do it for a while. Don't just start going, let's just chuck in all this stuff. Add some eggs, add some broth, take it slow, like really slow. And then just over time, add in a different protein. It's not going to hurt your dog if you feed it the same protein for 6 weeks. It's not. It's far more important that you figure out what your dog can tolerate. And if it can tolerate the bone in the food that you're feeding, if it's the fat content's too high or it needs something else, it can always be added later. Buying 101 different things isn't going to help to start.
No,
I love that.
Completely. And I think as well, I would say if you've got a dog that's on kibble and it's allergic to chicken, as far as you think, it's important to try all these things slowly and add in these things to actually see if there is a true allergy there or intolerance, because a lot of the time in these processed foods, it's actually because it's a processed food and not the real protein.
Yeah. And also the cheaper the brand, quite often they're not going to be filled with all one protein, even though it might say on the label, it will be chicken, beef, pork, offal or bones. and to always check, because it will save you in the long run.
Yeah, that is
definitely.
so important.
Definitely. Well, I think you need to give yourself a massive pat on the back because what you've done, you've been like amazing. So such an inspiration with how you've turned that dog around. So it's just been amazing to watch, really. And
thank you.
You need to talk about it more.
Yeah, I do. It's just such a long-winded story.
I know.
Even I forget bits. And then with Jacob alongside, I get confused between the two of them. Was it this day? Was it this year?
So, any shout outs to anyone else you want to do who sort of helped you along the way in your journey, or any brands, anywhere you get your brands?
Well, I suppose Helena and Steph, really, they helped me. You know, they were always on hand when I needed them.
Yeah.
And of course, I do buy most of my stuff from Steph's Pet Pantry because she allows me to order huge quantities of food.
Yes, and you do.
But yeah, I don't think there's anybody else out there.
No, I think we spoke about that before as well, like especially Helena from Poochie Park and Steph from Steph's Pet Pantry we're talking about, but their knowledge is just amazing. So we were saying before, if anybody's got any sort of worries about starting the raw journey, either of those two ladies, if you go to them, it's just so important. I think whoever you're buying your food from has that sort of knowledge.
Yeah, or even if you want to learn how to DIY, you know, Kat Jepson, amazing.
Yeah.
You know, she really knows what she's talking about, especially with supplements, like stuff that I hadn't even, you know, she'd say, oh, did you know that even though there is a little bit of this in there, it's okay. And I'd be like, oh, thank you. You know, so it is worth reaching out to people because they do know things that you are never going to know. You're never going to know.
We had that conversation, didn't we, about a supplement?
Yeah.
Like there's always going to be a little bit of something that you're unsure of in a supplement.
Yes.
So it's just being brave and trying things, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and especially as I had to avoid blueberries, and blueberries is in a lot of supplements.
It is.
Even though it's not mentioned in a few of them, there is a lot of brands that have them in there.
Yeah, it's sneaky, isn't it? Or there'll be things labelled as something else. And then you're sort of thinking, why is this my dog reacting to this like this? And then when you actually look into it, you're like, oh, that's why. So that's good to point out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and telling us your story.
You're very welcome.
Is that Klaus in the background there?
It is Klaus, yeah.
Beating you up.
He wants to go to the Rekin.
Oh, bless him. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, anytime. And well, we see you all the time. Anyway, in our chats and rants.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And hopefully we'll have more guests on soon, more lovely friends as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
While we share our personal views and experiences with canine health and nutrition, it's important to note our podcast is not a substitute for professional veterinary advice. If you have any concerns or questions about your dog's health or well-being, we strongly recommend seeking guidance from a qualified vet. Every dog is unique and individual circumstances may require specific attention. Our podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Please do not take any information from our podcast as one-to-one nutritional advice. Thanks for tuning in.